Well, good morning, everybody. What's on my mind today still is the Derby from last week. Of course, it is Mother's Day. I'll have a few things to say about that in a few minutes. I want to comment on the politics of color in America, the war on color that intensified this week. And then, of course, our red letter lesson. When the disciples asked Jesus a question, it was after the resurrection, after the other encounters with the risen Lord, and they said to him, "Okay, Jesus, we've taken all the walks with you. We had fish by the lake. We've inspected your wounded hands and feet. Now we got a question. Are you ready for the big stuff? Jesus, are you prepared to do your thing? Are you going to take control of everything and take us back to our rightful place as the kingdom of Israel?" In other words, we're ready for the golden age of Israel, and we want you to lead us. That is what they were talking about. It's in the first chapter of the Acts of the Apostles. I'll come back to all of that in a few minutes. But let me welcome you to Sunday in the House, my commentary on life, politics, and Jesus. I want to acknowledge the lingering thrill of the Run for the Roses. I know you've seen reruns of that Derby race. Here's a picture of those men, the two jockeys, Jose and Irad Ortiz from Puerto Rico. Isn't that great? At a time when our federal government is demonizing everybody that's not white and born either in Europe or the United States, the boys from Puerto Rico won the race. I have a short video of it. Can you take another video? I've watched so many videos this week. There's so many interesting things about this story. And about the horse that was dead last the whole race until the turn for home, and they were coming down the home stretch. And then the two...
Tempo and Cherie DeVaux make history in the Kentucky Derby over Renegade in a final time of 2:02.27 seconds.
The first female trainer to win the Kentucky Derby. 44-year-old Cherie DeVaux conditioning Golden Tempo with a tremendous run down the stretch to win the Derby.
I think these videos of that trainer were the best part of the whole race. And we've seen video from all angles of this woman, Cherie DeVaux, the first woman to win the Derby as a trainer. Isn't that great? She was working for the owner, another woman, Daisy Phipps Polito. She owns a stable that was started 100 years ago by another woman from Pittsburgh, her great-grandmother. Isn't this a great story? Gladys Mills Phipps. If you have any connection to Pittsburgh, as I do, you know the Phipps name. The Phipps family earned a lot of money in conjunction with Andrew Carnegie in Pittsburgh and his steel empire. Gladys Mills Phipps started this stable. It's called the Phipps Stable, but they actually operate in Lexington, Kentucky, out on one of the great farms there. And so this is a great story. The founder, the owner, and then the trainer winning the race. And I want to say, when powerful women are banning women from pulpits, kicking women out of military command, and even asserting now that women should not even be allowed to vote, I say it's inspirational to celebrate Cherie DeVaux and all the other women who are achieving great things in our country today and in the world. in spite of what the men try to do to them. What a derby it was. You know how I'm going to celebrate? I'm going to write a little book, illustrated children's book called Fenwick Wins the Derby. How does that sound to you? I met an illustrator a couple of weeks ago, and I went in to talk with her this week about this idea of taking Fenwick, my sidekick, Sir Fenwick, on formal occasions, or Finney, I think is his nickname. I'm going to start with a little book called Fenwick Walks the Trail. And of course, people around here know I mean the Swamp Rabbit Trail that runs from just north of Travelers Rest all the way down through the middle of Travelers Rest. Of course, it's an old train track, the Swamp Rabbit train that goes up into the mountains and I think goes all the way to North Carolina. But the trail just stops at the north end of Travelers Rest, but it goes 23 miles straight down through beautiful Greenville, South Carolina, and down on the south side of town. I haven't walked the whole thing. I have walked and biked all the way to town. That's 10 miles. But I'm going to start with Fenwick Walks the Trail. So stay tuned. Maybe in a month or two, I'll have the first pictures to show you. And then I'm going to do Fenwick Wins the Derby. I hope to have both of them ready for the Tangle Tour of 26 this fall, coming to South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and North Carolina. So stay tuned on all that. Amidst all this guts and glory of the grand horse race, the war against color took an ugly turn this week. The Supreme Court of the United States joined in the campaign to destroy the rights and privileges of people of color. Oh no, they say they're just eliminating color from the law. Makes me want to cuss. The white people are already stripping their work permits and sending them home, anybody of color. If you're in the United States of color, you better be nervous. They're rounding up people of color and sending them to detention centers all over the country. People of color are being fired from the top ranks in the military, including, can you believe it, the chief of chaplains in the United States Army. A minister, I think, in the Seventh-day Adventist who's been the chaplain for a long time, or maybe that's the chaplain of the Senate. But people of color are being fired from governmental jobs at a much higher rate than white people. They're targets of the anti-DEI campaign. That is, no diversity, no equality, no inclusion. As if diversity, equality, and inclusion are somehow violations of the American way. Yes, if you want to go back a century or two, when it was only white people from Europe that counted, no Native Americans, no African Americans, no Latino Americans. And now the Supreme Court this week gutted the Voting Rights Act, one of the most important pieces of legislation in the history of the United States. You know what it makes me think? All those white church-going Southerners are falling all over themselves to redraw the voting districts to disenfranchise black people. All to please that big white fat man sitting in the White House. All of this is wickedness and power. It's taken us way back, not toward a more perfect union, but toward more white power. It's all about power and money and whiteness. Makes me ashamed again to be connected with that white Christian nationalism all across the South. Now, it's in many places around the country, but it's certainly concentrated in the South. It demonstrates that all these religious white people in the South have never been converted. I don't care how many times they've been baptized or walked the aisle and rededicated themselves. They are unconverted and unsanctified and walking as far from Jesus as possible. Jesus was a person of color, you know, so were all of his followers. Yes, next Sunday, the 17th of May, that fat white man in the White House has announced that they're going to have on the National Mall a National Jubilee of Prayer, Praise, and Thanksgiving. What are they going to pray for? More power? What are they going to give praise for? For the golden statue of Donald Trump down in Florida that they're all marching to see and dancing around? What does that make you think of if you're biblically literate? They're going to sing and dance and take God's name in vain as they continue the war on Iran, the war against immigrants, the war against science, the war against black people. They're going to rededicate the country, not to God and liberty and justice. They're going to rededicate it to white people and white power and white rule. Yeah, there'll be a few people of color there, those who love power and powerful people, but not those who love justice and peace in the way of Jesus, who told us to feed the stranger, feed the poor, welcome the stranger, and to see the face of Jesus in every person, especially people of color. My prayer is this: God save us. God save you. God save me from this despicable religion called white Christian nationalism, sometimes fueled by what's called the New Apostolic Reformation and these pseudo-prophets who see the end of the world. I'm telling you, we're not facing the end of the world. We're not facing the last days. I should say, don't get me started on all this. Maybe we should turn to happier days. You know, today is Mother's Day. For some women, it's your first Mother's Day. There have been stories this week about mothers giving birth to multiple babies. It's a wonderful story. I hope today is a happy day for you, regardless of who you are and where you are. I want to recognize also that many women dread Mother's Day. It brings unwanted attention to some, and for others it highlights broken relationships. Not every mother is on good terms with her children, often through no fault of her own. I showed you one video, you know, on social media. There are many videos of women, mothers, confessing on social media, some given some version of this message, quote, "I've broken contact with my family. They were toxic in my life. I had to give them up." Other mothers struggle today with addiction and hopelessness and loneliness. My message today is be kind to your mother today, every day. I want to give honor to my mother today, Emma Rita Redden Moody. I have a couple of pictures I want to show of her. Here she is on her wedding day, 1948, right in the middle, my mother and my father together. That's a picture of their wedding in the home of my grandmother on Audubon Avenue in Lexington, Kentucky. You know, I notice about this picture, the men are all smiles, the women are not so much. I think that's kind of funny. My mother died in 2008 after a few years of dementia. She grew up in the mountains of Kentucky. She was the first in her family to go to college to earn a degree. I want to show a picture of her from a newspaper column. She earned 2 degrees. She spent her career as a school counselor and then a personal counselor and then a hospital chaplain in Paducah, Kentucky. She was a Bible teacher all of her life, and I want to honor her today. She did good all the days of her life. I want to highlight one single act of life-changing intervention. In my boyhood, I was fascinated with this record about Johnny Horton singing the Battle of New Orleans and Sink the Bismarck. I still smile when I hear the music. Sometimes it comes on. I know all the words to those songs. But you know, she intervened in a kind of a subtle way. She gave me a different record. Here it is. It's the great record of Van Cliburn. This helped set my feet in the right direction. She pushed me to piano lessons, and I learned to play hymns and to appreciate Rachmaninoff. Here's the famous Van Cliburn record, Tchaikovsky No. 1 Concerto on one side, Rachmaninoff Concerto No. 2 on the other side. Van Cliburn died a few years ago. You know, he brought fame and fortune to the United States, 1958, when he won the first Tchaikovsky piano competition in Moscow. They gave him a ticker tape parade in New York City. I think the only time that a concert pianist has been so celebrated in New York City. I'll have to confess, I have wished many times that I'd gotten in my car and driven down to Fort Worth, Texas, walked into, I think, the University Baptist Church, where he was a very faithful member. Wished I'd sat down beside him, sang a hymn or two with Van Cliburn. I want to thank my mother for redirecting my musical taste. I also want to thank that other mother in my life, the mother of my children, Jan Gregg Moody of Mason, Ohio. Here's the way I met her. I think this is her high school senior class picture. We met at Georgetown College. We got married in 1972. The remarkable thing about Jan, she's had more anniversaries than birthdays. I don't know how that happens. She's the mother of our 3 children, Alan of Lexington, Ike of Louisville, Sarah Kate here in South Carolina. Jan has been a wonderful person, hardworking and full of laughter all her days and still beautiful. I want to give thanks today. I want to honor her today. Call somebody today and make them happy. Maybe your mother, maybe your kids, maybe somebody that doesn't have anybody to make them happy, and to call them today. Reminds me of the John Prine song about just say hello in there. Now to our red letter lesson. I've got my Bible right here. The question that was put to Jesus: is it time for the return of the kingdom? To the return to kingdom power and kingdom living. And let me ask you this. If you had an opportunity to ask Jesus a question, what would you ask Jesus? If you had the risen Lord appear to you or show up at your house today or take a ride in your car with you, and you had the opportunity to ask Jesus a question, what would you ask? Why something tragic happened? Maybe you're facing a decision and you would ask Jesus about what you should do. Maybe you would ask Jesus why you are the way you are. The biggest mystery that all of us have is our own self. what motivates us and to say and do and be the way we are. Maybe you'd want to ask Jesus, why am I the way I am? Who made me this way? How did I get this way? Is there somebody I can blame? Maybe you'd want to ask Jesus who's going to win the Kentucky Derby in 2027. There are many good questions you can put to Jesus in the Gospels. But this one reveals something significant about those disciples, what they asked. They were interested in what we could only call Jewish nationalism. They were interested in the state and power and dominion. They're just like many people today. We want the kingdom. We want the power. We want the glory. Can you make it happen, Jesus? Jesus, of course, was not about kingdom and power and glory. He was all about humility and justice and mercy because he'd read the prophets. He'd been shaped by the great literature of the Hebrew Bible. He lived in the presence of God. He was full of the Spirit. He understood true religion. He knew about authentic humanity. He knew what the human race needed then and now. Remember those two people and the soldiers around him, they all taunted Jesus on the cross. They challenged him to save himself, to call the angels, legions of angels, to rescue him and them. You're the Lord of everything. You're the Messiah of Israel. Power us through this. Be the chief. Take charge. But that's not what Jesus did. That's not what Jesus was about. And when we talk about following Jesus, this is where it counts. Jesus was about serving the least of these around us, then and now. Jesus was and is about kindness to people. He wasn't about building detention centers, putting people in jail and sending them to desperate countries where they've never been. It wasn't about bombing people in South America or Africa or Central America or anywhere. Jesus wasn't about putting blockades on Cuba and causing distress, cutting off aid to the starving people in Somalia. Do you think Jesus approves of any of that? That's not what Jesus would do, and you know it. I know it. The president knows it. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, he knows it. And Lindsey Graham, that stupid senator from my state, he knows it. Oh, they blab stuff. Oh, we love Donald Trump. It's time to love Jesus, who welcomed the lonely and the refugee and the people of color. Jesus himself, a person of color, not all tied up in white Jewish nationalism. God blessed Jesus and his ministry and his devotion to this calling in life. He responded to the question that the disciples put to him. He said, forget the kingdom. Ignore the power question. Don't concern yourself with history and the end of the age and the signs of anybody coming and going. That's what it says right here. It's not for you to know any of this. The signs of the times. Let God take care of all that. You be my witnesses. Be my people. Be my peeps. Live the Beatitudes. Pray the prayer. Walk in the way. Live in communion with people. Community, I should say. Welcome the stranger. Wash somebody's feet. Sing for joy. Live with hope. be witnesses to my way of living, my values, my attitudes. That's what Jesus said right here, Acts chapter 1. He wasn't passing legislation to help the rich and hurt the poor. He wasn't commanding the military to bomb brown people far away to protect the billionaires at home. He wasn't about making money and trading in the stock market, pulling in an extra 100 million. None of that is about Jesus. That's the way of wickedness, the way of the world. You know, one of the apostles later, written in our Bible, put it this way: let this mind be in you and me, all of us, that was also in Jesus. That is, we need to think like Jesus and have a disposition like Jesus, an attitude like Jesus. We know that. But I'm telling you, power can be so seductive. We can be addicted to winning, gaining advantage for ourselves and putting other people down. Oh, we don't do it personally, but we vote that way, don't we? This is what it means to be a witness to the resurrection, to witness to Jesus. It's to live in the Beatitudes, to pray the prayer, walk the way of Jesus. That's what we mean by following Jesus. And goodness knows the world needs that today. That's our red letter lesson today. That's what's on my mind today. Let's all put aside the lust for glory, the love of power, and dominion and domination and position in kingdoms. We want to be like Jesus. Have a meal today with people you love and give thanks. Give thanks for life, for its simple pleasures, its blessings, its joys, its friendships, its surprising delights. I want to thank you for tuning in to this broadcast today. You might want to share it on social media or send it to somebody that you think needs to hear this, that something that I've said today or shown you today would be an inspiration and a help and a strength. Visit my website at themeetinghouse.net. Commentaries and book reviews. There's a place for you to subscribe to my weekly newsletter, email newsletter. You can go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Dwight A. Moody, and subscribe. And each week, YouTube will send you an alert that this program is coming on. You can watch it anytime during the week, not just at 9 o'clock on Sunday when we are live, but at any time. As a matter of fact, the programs we did last May are still up on YouTube, and you can watch any of them. Write me, let me know your thoughts, share this broadcast, visit the website as I said. Thank you for joining in today. God bless you all. I hope you have a wonderful day, that Mother's Day today is a good day for you, and that the week ahead is a safe, happy, and joyful week for you. God bless you all. I'm Dwight Moody. Have a good day.